apparently we now have no technology. So I also will be doing the interpretive dance. I also will not be telling you about my company. Instead, I will tell you about a framework that we have been developing together with a few others that helps us connect these solutions and innovations and the need for scale that we have been talking about for the last 2 days. I will share with you, so my company's name is Sphaera, but the more interesting point for the purpose of this presentation is, for our conversation, is that the name of our operating entity is Armillaria. And some of you may even know what that is. It is the largest living organism on Earth, and that is not an accident, right? The time is now to figure out how we build a largest living infrastructure to help us get solutions to scale. So let me tell you in a nutshell what I will talk to you about in the next 8 or so minutes. The first slide would have shown a Bill Clinton quote that essentially most problems have been solved by somebody somewhere. And the challenge of the 21st century now is to find what's working and scale it. And so I submit to you that not only, and this has been abundantly clear in this room and indeed on this panel, that we have the solutions, the innovations are out there. We also have the capital. There's something on the order of $200 trillion in private capital looking to be deployed in hopefully ways that actually preserve life on this planet. So then the second take-home point is what we need now is to figure out how we collaborate and scale these solutions as if the future depended on it, because it does. And my final take-home message for you is the technological, financial, and legal innovations exist today to help us get there together. So let me back into a little bit of sort of a problem landscape. So you heard about the Sustainable Development Goals. I suspect many of you are familiar with that aspirational set of global goals. A pertinent fact about them is that there's something like a $2.5 trillion annual funding gap if we try to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. Now, several of you here in the room are impact investors. Impact investing has been around for 10 years and now is at about 100 billion in assets under management, right? So there's a gap. It took us 10 years to get 100 billion. Clearly, we now need to accelerate at this moment in history. Impact investing alone isn't going to get us there. Linear growth is not going to get us there. At the same moment in time, the business of change is also very broken. And any of you who have ever run a nonprofit organization and have been in this sort of perpetual treadmill to find funding, or if you're building a social enterprise and you're fundraising, right? You've lived this, right? This is our industry. If you think of it as an industry that implements social outcomes, environmental outcomes, solutions at scale. So then you think, like I do, I'm an ecological economist, well, that sounds like some other industries that have recently been disrupted by technology. Well, why don't we just build the Uber or Airbnb or GitHub or Amazon.com of social impact, of social change, of innovation? And that is, in fact, how we used to introduce our company not that long ago, until you truly realized, oh, look, there's 150 other people who had the same idea. This roughly is the ecosystem just of impact investing marketplaces that are trying to connect solutions with capital. Well, that's a bit of a problem, or as we say, oops. We had a few of us in the room last month at the Rockefeller Foundation talking about this challenge of how do we get to scale, right? And so the little red dot is 6 of us platforms. After $12 million of funding, we had about 300,000 users. And the big black Death Star is Facebook. At the same time, I'm going to ignore that. I'm told I have more time by Amy herself. So obviously, we're not going to be, at this rate, we're not going to get there. So let me tell you a story about the MacArthur Foundation and how we, at the moment in our industry, think about scaling solutions, right? And what's problematic about that and where the opportunity is in it. MacArthur Foundation is in the midst of a $100 million prize competition. It's called 100 and Change. And they're using all the latest and greatest in technology to support and run these sorts of prize competitions and make it easy for the jury, et cetera, et cetera. And they're completely fixated on their problem, right? And their problem is, how do we give away $100 million? So when they asked me to serve on the jury, I said, I don't really care. I care about the N-1 runner-ups. because you're holding out a 9-figure price purse for technologies and solutions for whom that 100 million would be a tipping point and get them to massive scale. What are you going to do, right? And the answer was, well, they didn't really have the plumbing for it. They didn't anticipate this. And I said, why not? So now they have this massive, it's literally an $80 billion pipeline, and they've got nowhere to point it. They're getting phone calls from pension funds and sovereign wealth funds, and they have nothing to say to them because none of the information is curated in a way that a big investor could now look at. And this was entirely predictable, right? It's a system design problem that we can address with better plumbing. So what we envision, the framework we have developed with others, is an open architecture that sort of contemplates a platform of platforms that serve the entire social value chain, or as represented here, a social value continuum, right? So if you think about how do we bring solutions for resilient prosperity to scale, you need all these different elements of the workflow. You know, want to ideate, you're innovating, you're operationalizing, commercializing, you need to measure your impact, you're looking for financing, right? So these are all sort of the discrete workflows in our industry that are served by entirely too many silver bullets. Entirely, it's not as bad as in some other industries, but there are too many of us already. So we said, well, geez, why don't we just figure out a way to make these things talk to each other, right? And just create a backbone where we can slot in a bunch of pertinent apps, as it were. So who here knows what an API is? Good. It's basically, for those of you who don't know, it's basically the way that different databases or different technologies sort of share data, sort of do the handoff, right? Hello, my name is Astrid. Oh, my name is Leif. You know, oh, I have data. Oh, I have data. Great, right? And this is sort of it's backbone stuff. It's boring, and you need engineers to build it. And that's basically what we're proposing to do. We are extremely bullish on collaboration. I have not yet met another impacty, social purpose, clean tech type marketplace platform like Leif's, for example, that I haven't felt we should be partnering with to combine our features and our capabilities in a use case that would add tremendous value to our respective clients, okay? And so that's what we've been working on now, and when we do this, we actually partner with these companies that you would think are our competitors. So this goes completely counter to the Silicon Valley way of raising money, right? We're basically saying we're not building a monopoly, doing the land grab. We're basically creating a benign oligopoly, if you want to go all economics on it. And because we see the competitive advantage of collaboration, right? And so what we're doing with these early, and these are hard negotiations, right? This is not normal startup behavior, that you start out by negotiating a business agreement with somebody who looks like a competitor, or at best is a channel partner. But what we're doing with those contracts is we're essentially using them as prototypes for what becomes a protocol, right? And no conference these days is complete without somebody saying blockchain, so I've said it. That's how this will work. And we're building it now, right? So we're in it. We have our product out that can sort of slot into the value chain, and then we're working with early adopters like the Gates Foundation to basically build out the next phase of this platform of platforms. And when you look at their problem, this is sort of akin. This is very similar to the problems that the MacArthur Foundation has, but didn't quite address yet, or hasn't quite addressed yet in their prize challenge. They have an annual grant-making portfolio of 125 million in water and sanitation. They want to mobilize their existing knowledge and learning from that portfolio and help their grantees collaborate more effectively together. They want to broker larger networks of people who are working towards water and sanitation issues, because that globally is a $600 billion externality. And then finally, the Gates Foundation doesn't have enough money to solve the $600 billion problem, so they need to figure out ways to leverage that entire portfolio to attract other private, preferably outcome-based financing, right? And so we're just now in the what sort of in agile development is called the discovery and requirements gathering phase with the Gates Foundation. So, to conclude, we have the technology today to create effectively a global, decentralized, open architecture, the plumbing, if you will, for facilitating collaboration and scale. And the secret, again, is in the APIs and in blockchain to align what are these distributed actors along the social value chain that all need to be pulling together in their respective pursuits in ways that make sense. And by make sense, I mean make monetary sense as well, right? And so what we always do is we try to model this behavior. So here I go, just to outline some give and gets, right? So this is the sort of sharing reciprocity model of how eventually the infrastructure works. You get our data, content and users, if you give us yours. Right? So with Leif, we're going to be exploring what that looks like. You know, what, for example, we have we're working with Engineers for Change. They have a solutions library that has lighting solutions, right? You can imagine hooking up their marketplace with Leif. Well, to do that, we need to figure out how those two pieces of technology talk to each other, and we're very keen to explore that. We can do this in ways that all of us get more recognition and rewards if we figure this out together, right? Think 2.5 trillion. Imagine a few basis points of outcome-based transactions, and you're ending up in some very large numbers that will benefit this larger ecosystem that we're creating. And I would be a bad guest at this fabulous gathering if I didn't have a gift for Amy. So just to show you what we have built, so our product is platform as a service, right? We might all come away from here and saying, man, we had such interesting discussions at our dinner last night about women investing in women entrepreneurs. There was a vigorous exchange of business cards, but then we all know what happens, right? You leave here, you go home, email happens, family happens. So you might say, geez, Amy and the Sun Valley Institute, why don't you create an online space for us where we can continue exchanging what we do, and where the Institute maybe curates all the fabulous solutions for resilience locally and perhaps globally. So because our product is in fact platform as a service, we just made you one. It's yours. Our gift to you. So we look forward to seeing you there or in other parts of this living organism that we now need to build for massive collaboration and scale. Thank you very much.